Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Hello, Shalom Aleichem, welcome. Today's Daf is YOMA Samaches. We got up to the two dots, which are 10 lines from the top of the Amid. Now the Mishnah spoke about the Par V'So'ir of Yom Kippur, which are taken beyond 3 machanos. So in Eretz Yisrael would be the Beis Hamikdash, the Azara would be Machna Shechina, Har HaBayis would be considered like Machne Levia, and Yerushalayim like Machne Yisrael. So the 3 machnes correspond to the 3 machnes in the Midbar, where you have Machne Shechina, the Mishkan, Machne Levia surrounding that is Machne Yisrael. So you take the Par V'So'ir beyond all 3 machnes, outside Yerushalayim, where they will be burnt. The Mishnah as well tells us that the fellow who transports the Par V'So'ir, he becomes Tamei and his Begadim as well. He is Metamei Begadim. Now, at what point does Tumas Begadim set in? Tanakama says, although Sreifa is done beyond 3 machnes, but Tumas Begadim kicks in right as soon as he leaves the first machna. Mishiyatzu chutz l'choimas ha'azara. When they leave the Azara, that's the first machna, Tumas Begadim sets in. Whereas Reb Shimon maintains, Mishayatzis ha'ur beruban. You need to wait until the fire catches on to most of the Par V'So'ir. See, the pasuk says, "V'hasoyref oisa michabes begadav." One who's engaged in the sreifa process of these animals, his begadim become tamei. Tanakama maintains that process begins as soon as you leave the Azara. The Gemara now will give us the background for this machlekes. Says the Gemara, "Meimasam mitamin begadim tan rabbanan." The pasuk says, "Yoitzi el mechutz lamachne." So the par and the sur on Yom Kippur are meant to be taken out of the machne. Yoitzi el mechutz lamachne v'sorfu v'eish. And over there, you're meant to burn them. Question is, why does the pasuk make reference to a single machne? Yoitzi el mechutz lamachne v'sorfu. Why only one machne? They're meant to be taken beyond all 3 machnes for sreifa. Lahalan ata noisein lahem shalach machnes. Elsewhere, you tell me you need to take it beyond 3 machnes. V'kan ata noisein lahem machna achas. And here, you're only giving them 1 machna? Meaning, when it comes to the other karbanis, we're speaking about the par herlam davar shel tzibur, which Klal Yisrael will bring on account of an avera they committed b'hoiras bezdin, a par herlam davar, or a par koyin mashiach. If a koyin gadol commits an avera, he brings his own personal par throughout the year. Those are also karbanis which are meant to be burnt outside all 3 machnes. Outside all 3 machnes. And when it comes to Par V'So'ir on Yom Kippur, they also conform to that halacha, because Rashi brings Zvachim bases it on a pasuk that all these karbanos are meant to be burnt at the same exact location beyond 3 machnes. So that's the pshat. Lahala natanoisein lehem shalish machnes. Elsewhere, you tell me they're all burnt beyond 3 machnes. V'kan natanoisein lehem machna achas. And here, you suffice with only transporting them outside 1 machne and have them burnt there? That can't be. If that's the case, why does the pasuk mention only a single machne? Yoitzi el mechutz lamachne. In kain lo menemar mechutz lamachne. Says the Gemara, it's meant to be applied to a different halacha, not the location of sreifa. Rather, at what point? It's describing the point where tumas begadim sets in. Loy malach k'meshiyot chutz lamachna achas. Once you leave beyond even 1 machna, you leave the Azara, metamim begadim, tumas begadim sets in. The process of sreifa has already begun. You've already begun transporting this animal of sreifa. But certainly the sreifa itself occurs outside 3 machnes. Indeed, how do we know elsewhere that the halacha of sreifa is going to be beyond 3 machnes? We're assuming it as a known fact, as a given, that when it comes to all the other karbanis that require Sreifa, they're going to be done outside the 3 machnes. V'asa menol and desanya. V'hoitzi is kala par. This is the pasuk by Par Koyin Mashiach. You want to transport the par outside the machna, el mechutz lamachna, el makom tar, el shefach hadeshen, v'sorav oisay, etc. That's where you burn it. Says the Gemara, although it says mechutz lamachna, which denotes a single machna, but in reality it's chutz to sholish machnas. It's really beyond all 3. How do you know? You claim it's beyond 3. Perhaps you're going to burn the Par Koyin Moshiach beyond 1 machna. Hezmor can't be. Why? Because we find another pasuk discussing the Par He'elim Davar Shel Tzibur, which is going to be taken El Mechutz Lamachna V'Saraf Oisoi Kasher Saraf Esa Par Harishan Chatas HaKa'alahu. The pasuk by Par He'elim Davar tells you, take him out Mechutz Lamachna, burn him there, the same way you burned the other par. The Par Koyin Mashiach, which a Koyin Gadol will bring if he commits a grave Avera throughout the year. So the kasha is, why does the pasuk by Par He'elim Davar need to repeat the location? Elam Chutz Lamachna. We don't need it. We already know its location from the other par, from Par Koyin Mashiach, because they're both connected. She'en Talmud Loim, there's no need for the pasuk to state it again over here. Sharik Far Nemar V'Soraf Oisei Kasher Soraf Esa Par Harishan. That very same pasuk tells you, burn this Par He'elim Davar at the same exact location where you're going to burn the Par Koyin Mashiach, which we know to be Mechutz Lamachna. So why the repetition? Uma Talmud Loim El Mechutz Lamachna. Why did the Torah again describe the location of Sreifa as being Mechutz Lamachna? There's no need, since we already know the location from the other part, from the Par Koyin Mashiach. This one is meant to be burnt the same place as the other one. So why do you have to describe it again? Mechutz Lamachna. Litein Lemachna Shniya. This pasuk is coming to tell you, push it out yet another machna. So both the Par He'elim Davar and the Koyin Mashiach, which will be burnt at the same place, are meant to go beyond 2 machnas. Okay, so we've already gotten beyond 2 machnas. How do you know it's going to be beyond 3? Ugeshu Omer. Mechutz Lamachna B'Deshen. There's another pasuk elsewhere, unrelated to these, speaking about when the Kohen transports the ashes of the Mizbeach, the Deshen. Occasionally they would do that. Going to Rambam was a daily affair. They take the Deshen outside Yerushalayim to where? The pasuk says, "V'hoitzi sadeshen el mechutz lamachna el makom tor," beyond the machna. The shaila is, why do you need to spell it out? You take the Deshen el mechutz lamachna. Keshu Eimer mechutz lamachna b'Deshen. We find the reference to mechutz lamachna by Deshen, really it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary to spell out a location. She'en Talmud Loimer. You know why? Because way back by the Makib Sreifa of the Par Koyin Mashiach, what does the Torah say? You take him out mechutz lamachna el shefach hadeshen, to where you the place where you spill out the deshen. Right? That's where you take out the Par Koyin Mashiach. Mechutz lamachna el shefach hadeshen. So what does that tell you about the location of the shefach hadeshen? Apparently it's mechutz lamachna. Right? So why does the pasuk have to spill it out again? When the pasuk speaking about transporting the deshen outside the machna, why spell it out that it's mechutz lamachna? We already know that you sheifich the deshen mechutz lamachna. Pasuk already told you. By Par Koyin Mashiach, you burn it outside the machna where you bring the deshen. So you already know that the deshen goes mechutz lamachna. There's no need for that again. Apparently, it's coming to tell you a chiddush. Give him another machna. That all these things take place way beyond, outside all 3 machnas. Shefach hadeshen is there, You burn the Par Kohen Mashiach there, the Par Helam Davar, and Par V'Serv of Yom Kippur as well, which are connected to those Korbans. So Sreifa takes place beyond 3 machnes. Why then does the Pasuk tell you that you take the Par and Serv of Yom Kippur Mechutz la Machaneh, outside a single machna? That's not a reference to the Makom Sreifa. Rather, that's telling you where the din of Tumas Begadim commences. It kicks off right when you leave the Azara, the first machna. So that's the sheet of the Tanakama. Now, Rabbi Shimon disagreed in the Mishnah. Tumas Begadim, according to him, began when Mishayatis or Urba, once the fire takes hold of most of the animal. So what does he do with Mechutz Lamachna? Rabbi Shimon hay Mechutz Lamachna may avidly. Says the Gemara, he applies it for another halach. Mi boile l'kdesanya. Rabbi Lezo Eimer. It's going to tell you the exact. It's going to pinpoint the exact makom of Sreifa. We know it's Mechutz Lamachnos, all 3, but where? In which direction outside Yerushalayim? So he says like this: Rabbi Lezo Eimer neman kan Mechutz Lamachna. Over here by the Purim and Srafim and Kippur, we have a lashon Mechutz Lamachna. V'nemar lahalon Mechutz Lamachna. And elsewhere by Par Aduma, there as well the pasuk speaks about doing the process, the shechita, etc. Mechutz Lamachna. We make a parallel. We draw a parallel between 2 things. Ma kan chutz l'shalosh machnos, af lahalon chutz l'shalosh machnos. So first thing we learn is just as over here by Yom Kippur, the Sreifa takes place outside all 3 machnes. There as well by Par Aduma, the process will take place outside Yerushalayim, mechutz l'gimel machnes. That's number 1. And then we bring the halacha back. We draw a reverse parallel. Uma lahalan b'mizracha shel Yerushalayim. And just as the Par Aduma takes place where? In the Mizrach of Yerushalayim, to the east of Yerushalayim. Why? Because the pasuk there speaks about the hazah of the dam being done noichach pnei oyel moed, towards the direction of the mizrach of oyel moed, the mizrach of the heichal. Evidently, the process will take place to the east of the Beis Hamikdash, to the east of Yerushalayim. Afkan b'mizrach of Yerushalayim here as well. On Yom Kippur, the sreifa of these karbanis will take place outside Yerushalayim to the east of Yerushalayim. So according to Rabbi Shimon, we apply this pasuk of Mechutz Lamachna for this halacha, to allow us to make that connection between here and Par Aduma, to indicate the exact location of the Sreifa and the exact location of the Par Aduma process. Both Mechutz Lamachna, Mechutz L'shalosh machnas actually, and to the Mizrach of Yerushalayim. V'Rabbanan heichasarvlu. According to Rabbanan, this pasuk isn't available to tell you that the Sreifa takes place in Mizrach Yerushalayim. So indeed, where exactly will you burn the Par V'Sar of Yom Kippur? Kedesanya, Hechen Esrafim. Where are they meant to be burned? Let's find out Yerushalayim. V'chutz l'shalosh machnes. Actually, it's not going to be to the east. It's going to be to the north of Yerushalayim. Let's find out Yerushalayim. V'chutz l'shalosh machnes. Why would we say tzafin? Says Rashi up on top, let's find it Yerushalayim. Shekol maaseh chatos b'tzafin. The Gemara assumes, just as all the other maasim of a korban chatos are meant to take place in the tzafin, you do the shechita, the kabbalah, everything is in the tzafin of the azora. We assume that the process of sreifa takes place to the tzafin of Yerushalayim as well. Rabbi Yosi Omer, says the Gemara, Beis Hadeshen Nisrafin. They're meant to be burnt on the Beis Hadeshen. Now, what does this mean? All seem to agree that the Sreifa is going to be in a place designated for pouring out the Deshen of the Mizbeach. Pasuk says it's going to be Al Shavach Hadeshen. So, what does he mean? Let's go back over to Rashi on the top line. Beis Hadeshen, says Rashi, Tzorech sheyagdim l'sham Deshen HaMizbeach. What he means is you have to prepare the makom with deshen. Make sure there's actual deshen sitting there. Perhaps the wind blew it away. You have to make sure there's deshen present before arriving with your Par V'Soyer. Sheyehei nikra koidim lachein mokem shefach hadeshen. So that's Rabbi Yossi Shita. Mechlal the Tanakama litzorach. Says Rashi, apparently Tanakama doesn't require there to actually be deshen there at the time of your arrival. Okay, so all agree that the Sreifa takes place outside Shalish Machnes. Regarding the Tumas Begodim, when does that occur? According to Tanakama, as soon as you leave one Machna, according to Reb Shimon, you need to wait for the fire to catch on most of the animal. And as far as the Ruach, the direction outside Yerushalayim, according to Rabbi Shimon, it's going to be Lemizrach. According to the Rabbanon, it's going to be Litzaf in Yerushalayim. Listen to this. I once read an article that up until about 100 or so years ago, there was a mound of ashes, of incinerated animal parts, which was situated to the north of today's old city. So to the north of Har Bayis, Litzfanish Yerushalayim. And this was known traditionally throughout the community of Yerushalayim, the Yishuv people, that this is Shefach Hadeshen. This was the Mokim Shefach Hadeshen of the Beis Hamikdash. And it was sitting there for hundreds and hundreds of years, a tall mound of animal waste, burnt pieces of animal. And they say that there was a factory, a soap factory that would that would supply themselves from this mound that had the fatty elements of animals, animal fat in there. This would supply their operations. And slowly but surely, the mound dissipated, and it disappeared. In fact, there was a famous tzaddik in Europe, I forget his name, Rav Kleinem or something, and when he heard about this, he was so excited. He asked somebody to send him a specimen of that deshen, and somebody actually sent him a burnt horn of an animal, and he was so taken by it. Imagine holding on to a piece of a korban of the Beis Hamikdash. It was mutar b'hana because it was already taken out of Yerushalayim, out of Beis Hamikdash. It was not as a mitzvah. So there's no shiloh of me'ilah, and he was just so inspired. Imagine holding on to a horn of a korban tamid of Beis Hamikdash. So this was the Shefach Hadeshen, and they researched it, and it sort of works out with the Gemara, because we just learned that the Makom Shefach Hadeshen was where? It was outside Yerushalayim, to the southern of Yerushalayim, and that's exactly what it was. It was north of Yerushalayim, and it seems that the theory was plausible, that it was the Makom Shefach Hadeshen. You say it was right near what today is called the Manda Mount Gate. There's a museum there, and it was right there. A big mound of black ash. Mokum Shefach Hadeshen. Okay, so that's Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says we need to have some deshen transported to that location prior to Sreifa. Continues Gemara. Amar Rava, Man Tana de Palagaled Rabbi Yossi. Who disagrees with Rabbi Yossi? Who does not maintain that deshen needs to be there at the time of Sreifa? Who's the Shita? Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. The Sanya, El Shefach Hadeshen Yisarif. We learn from here, Sheyehei l'sham deshen. There needs to be deshen present when you bring the par v'soil for Sreifa. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov Eimer, no, Sheyehei mekayim v'shufach. Shefach Hadeshen means that it needs to be an angled, a slopey area which is suitable and designated for Sheichas Hadeshen, but Rav assumes that according to Blazer ben Yaakov, you don't need the deshen actually there. So he's the Chayil Rabbi Yossi. Amli Abaye, who says, V'dilma b'mekayim v'shufach u'depligi. Perhaps all agree. Even Rabbi Lezer agrees that there needs to be deshen there. It's just that he's machmer. He requires that it should be a makom meshufach. It needs to be a slanty area. So in its contour, it has to present itself as a mokim shefach hadeshen suitable for spilling deshen. But perhaps all shitas agree that all shitas here in this price, Tanakama and Rav Lezer ben Yaakov would agree that sorach sheyagdim l'sham deshen. He has to proceed. He has to bring some deshen into that area to enable the streifa of parveser. Okay, continues the Gemara. Tana Rabban. The pasuk says, "V'asoreif oisam yichabes begodav. So the fellow engaged in the shreif of the pavisur, he has to rinse his begodim. He becomes tamei as well as his begodim. Says the Brayse of Aserif, Haserif metame begodim v'loi hamatzis esour. So Rashi rightly explains, this Brayse is following Reb Shimon, who maintains that the din of tumas begodim sets in during the sreifa. Right? As Reb Shimon said in the Mishnah, once the fire consumes catches onto most of the animal, that's the true shas sreifa, and that's where tumas begodim begins. So the Brayse is in line with that shita, and the Brayse details it further. Haserif metam begodim v'lo yamatzis esaur. There won't be tumas begodim applied to the fellow who simply lights the fire. V'lo yamasadas maracha, nor does it apply to the fellow who sets up the firewood. Rather, who is the fellow, the serf, who will have tumas begodim? It's only the fellow who's actually helping out the streif of the animal. So once the fire catches hold of the animal, he goes and helps things out. He will get tumas begodim. So that's when it begins. And tuma carries on throughout the streif of the animal, but until what point does tuma apply? Says the Brayse, Yochel af mishanasu efer mitama begodim. Perhaps you'll say tumas begodim applies up until and including when the animal turns into ashes. So anybody involved in the streif, even at that point, will be mitama begodim? No. Talmud loymar oisam. Pasuk says v'hasoref oisam yechabes begodim. When it's still oisam, when it's still somewhat intact. Oisam mitama begodim v'lo mishanasu efer mitama begodim. Once it turns into ashes, it's no longer intact. It's no longer going to be mitama begodim. Rabbi Shimon Omer, he's more makel. He says even if it's not yet at the point of efer, tumas begodim ceases to apply. Hapar mitama begodim. Only when it's still in a par form, it's going to be mitama begodim. But nitach basar, once the basar becomes partially incinerated, it's already dried and hardened. Eina mitama begodim, it's no longer mitama begodim. My binayu. What will be the difference between Tanakama and Reb Shimon? The difference is the shavi charucha. Once it turns into charucha, charred, dried, incinerated, even though it's not afer. At this point, Reb Shimon maintains there's no longer tumas begodim, whereas according to Tanakama, tumas begodim applies up until the point of afer. And what's the makor of Reb Shimon? So he makes mention of the word hapar, and the shaila is there is no hapar in this pasuk. Pasuk says v'aseiref oisam mitame begodav, chames begodav. So what does he mean by hapar mitame? But once it's no longer the original par, it no longer looks like an animal, it's no longer fresh flesh, it's already incinerated, it loses that koyach to mitame begodim. So the Siach Yitzchak explains, you see, although in this pasuk there's no mention of hapar, but when the pasuk says v'aseiref oisam chames begodav, what does the pasuk mean? One who's engaged in burning them. What does that mean? The parvis soyer, which I mentioned in the other pasuk. So as long as it's still oisam, we still have the parvis soyer in the original form. Yeah, then tama begodim. Once it loses that status, it's already charucha. It's already nitach basar. It's no longer the par in its original format. It's no longer mitama begodim. So we learned about tumas begodim. What's the starting point for tumas begodim? According to Tanakama, Mishayetzu chutz l'chayma sa'azora, as we learned in Amaral, Pasuk says, once you leave even one machna, there's going to be tumas begodim. According to Reb Shimon, Mishayatze sa'ur beruban. Tumas begodim only kicks in when the fire takes hold of most of the animal. Until what point will tumas begodim apply? But machlekes again. According to Reb Shimon, as soon as it becomes charred, nitach habasar, it's no longer the original par, no longer tumas begodim. According to Tanakama, the tumah applies up until the point of nasu efer, but once it turns into ashes, it's no longer mitame begodim. Where is the Sreifa going to take place? All agree mechutz l'shalish machnos. According to Reb Shimon, lemizrach shel Yerushalayim. According to Tanna Kama, litzvayna shel Yerushalayim. Regarding the deshen requirement, does it have to have deshen in the makom deshen to allow Sreifa? According to Rabbi Yossi, yes, and according to Tanna Kama, no. And Rabbi Yaakov, there was a shayla there. Rabbi said he held it, you don't need, and Abaye maintained even Rabbi Yaakov requires deshen, but he adds another stipulation: mekayim meshufach has to be a slanty, slopey location. Continues the Mishnah. Omru lo l'kayin gadol higi asar lamidbar. They informed the kayin gadol that the Samash Talech already arrived at the midbar, and it's time to get back to the avodah. Says Rashi off to the left. Omru lo l'kayin gadol. Why do I have to tell him? She'eni rashai lahaschal b'avodah acheres. He cannot resume the avodos of the Beis Hamikdash achi yigi asar lamidbar, until the Sir actually arrives at the midbar. Shenemar. V'shilach es haser b'midbar, and only then does it say v'achakach v'eschel v'achatos yaktem esbeicha. So they needed to tell him when that happened in order to allow him to go back to his avodah. Says the Mishnah, how did I know? It's Yom Kippur. How would they know that the Soyer arrived at the midbar? U'menayin hayu yoydin she'igi asar l'midbar. Says the Mishnah, dirchais hayu oisen. They position signalmen, lookouts along the way, all along the route between Yerushalayim and the cliff, which was 12 mil away, roughly 12 miles. U'menifam b'sudar, and they would wave their flags. So the fellow standing near the cliff would be the first one, and then that would be a message for the next fellow who was standing on another hilltop in the distance, for him to pick up his flag, and followed by the one next to him, all the way to Yerushalayim. So the message passed very quickly, and by the time, this way he knew that it's time to continue the avodah. Umanifim b'sudaran, they would wave their flags. V'yoydin she'yesh al midbar, in which case they knew that the Sir arrived at the midbar. So this is Tanna Kama's method. On Rabbi Yehuda, why resort to that? V'aloi siman gadol hoyelem. It was a siman gadol. It seems that he liked this one better. It was a more convenient and more accurate siman to figure when the Sir arrives at the midbar. Why? Yerushalayim bad beis chidudoi shloisha milim. You see, from Yerushalayim until the place called Beis Chiduda, which was the beginning of the desert. Beis Chiduda is a sharp, a rocky, sharp, the beginning of the Midbar area, which according to Rabbi Yehuda is sufficient. As soon as the Sir reaches that point, it's considered Higia Sor la Midbar. You don't need to have the Sir arrive at the cliff to enable the Kohen Gadol to go back to Avodah. Says Rabbi Yehuda, if that's the case, let's calculate as follows. Between Yerushalayim and Beis Chidudai, we had 3 mil. Hoilchen mil. Remember, the Bnei Yerushalayim would walk the fellow on that first segment, the first mil, the Chayzer mil, and then they dropped him off at the first sukkah and came back. So now, the amount of time which it takes to walk 2 mil has already elapsed. Vishayin kedei mil. And once they come back, they wait another 18 minutes, whatever the shear, however long it takes to walk a mil. At this point, they know they know that the fellow with this soy arrived at the outskirts of the midbar, basically 3 mil away. Right? They walked a mil, they came back a mil, and they waited the shear that it takes to walk a mil. And now we know with certainty. Now it seems that Rabbi Yehuda held this was more accurate than having flags. Some say perhaps the flagman might err in his signal and might pick up his flag too early. So he said, look, just use this simple method. This way you know the Sir arrived. Rabbi Shmuel Aimer, what about the other simon they had? They didn't have to have people and flags and calculations. There was a miraculous simon. You forgot about the red ribbon? It was hung off the Pesach HaHeichal. And once the soyer arrived at the cliff, it would whiten. That would be your best simon. That soyer has arrived. This was in line with the pasuk. Torah says, if your averos will be as red ribbons, kashel galbinu, it will whiten like snow. This is a simon of kapara. And indeed, why couldn't this provide an accurate indicator of when the soyer arrives at the midbar? Apparently, the other shittas held you can't rely. It wasn't always, unfortunately, it didn't always happen. So it's not really something reliable. So we have three ways, three methods. We have Tanakama's method. We have the flags. Rabbi Yehuda says just calculate 3 mil. According to Rabbi Shmuel, use the red thread. Pretty clear from Rabbi Yehuda that Beis Chiduda is considered midbar, even though it's just the beginning of the midbar. That is sufficient for our cause. V'kamash malan. And by saying this, Abaye is teaching us to Kesav Rabbi Yehuda, Kiven Shigia Sor LaMidbar Nas Mitzvasai. That what Rabbi Yehuda meant to say was that as soon as the Sor arrives at the outskirts of the midbar, so Beis Chaduda is already considered midbar. We consider it to be Nasas Mitzvasai. We consider the Sor as having arrived at the midbar, in which case the mitzvah, at least the first segment of the mitzvah, has been fulfilled, and that is sufficient to allow the Kohen Gadol to proceed with the next segment in the Avodah. Hadran Lach Shnei Sirei. What was the next item on the agenda? It says the Mishnah, Baloi Kohen Gadol Likrois. Kohen Gadol would arrive in the Beis HaKnesses, which was on the Har HaBayis, in order to read the Torah. He would read the portions of the Torah pertaining to Yom Kippur, and as Rashi, Teshishon bring Psukim. We learn this from Psukim that there needs to be a Kriyas HaTorah in Yom Kippur. So you actually have only twice a year where there's a din Kriyas HaTorah, Min HaTorah. Right? All the Kriyas HaTorah are only the Rabbanon. The 2 times are of course Pashas Zachar, and here we have another Kriyas HaTorah, which is required midaraisa, the kriya of Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur. Says the Mishnah, if he chooses to do kriyas HaTorah wearing his white bigdei kahuna, sure, go ahead. Otherwise, if he wants to use his own personal cloak, he can do that. He can use his personal white robe, even if it still belongs to him. He doesn't have to give it over to the tzibur, because this activity that is engaged in this Kriyas HaTorah is not really an avoida, does not really require bigdei kahuna. Chazan HaKnesses Noitel Sefer Torah, the attendant of the shul, he would take the Sefer Torah first, and hand it over to the head of the shul, what we call today the Gabbai, the one in charge of the aliyahs, etc. So he would hand it over to him. Rosh HaKnesses Sgan, and Rosh HaKnesses in turn would hand it over to the Sgan Kohen Gadol, the assistant, the backup Kohen Gadol. So it would make its way up the ladder. Vasgan Noisn Kohen Gadol, and finally the Sgan hands it over to the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol Oimed Makabel. Kohen Gadol got up to receive the Sefer Torah V'Koirei, and he reads the Psukim in Pashas Achrei Mois, V'Ach Ba'asar, that's in Pashas Emor, describing the avoid and the karbanos of Yom Kippur. Now he really had another parasha to read in Pashas Pinchas, but they didn't want to keep the crowd waiting while they rolled the Sefer Torah, so he would stop right there. The Goydel Sefer Torah, close up the Sefer Torah, Umanicha B'Cheker, place it in his bosom, but Ayman, he would announce, look, it's not because there's no more written in this Torah. Actually, it's a full Sefer Torah, it's a Kasher Sefer Torah. Much more than what I have read for you is written in this Torah. I simply don't want to keep you waiting. So I'm going to close the Sefer Torah and read the other one by heart. The Parsha of Be'asar L'Chodesh Shebechumash HaPkudim, which is contained in Parshat Pinchas, which is in Chumash Bamidbar, called Chumash HaPkudim, the book of Numbers. It begins by describing the counting of Klal Yisrael. So that Parsha Kor Al Peh he'll read by heart. When he's done Kriyas HaTorah, he says no less than 8 brachas. Umevarach alea shmoina brachas ala Torah. Actually says this is Asher Nosan Lono Teres Emes. The Rambam Pirush Mishnah actually says it's also referring to the Asher Baruch Abana before Kriyas HaTorah. So he does that. Vala Avoida, another bracha on account of the Avoida, the Karbonis. He davens, he has a tefillah. Hashem should accept the Karbonis, and he concludes with a bracha. Vala Ida, another bracha of Moedim, thanking Hashem for the opportunity to do the Avoida, and he concludes with a bracha. Mechilas Avain, pertaining to the Mechilas Avoinos, Vala Midrash B'nei Atzmai, another bracha pertaining to tefillah. Hashem should sustain the Beis Hamikdash. Vala Yisrael B'nei Atzma should sustain Yisrael. Vala Yishalayim B'nei Atzma should sustain Yerushalayim. Vala Keihanim B'nei Atzma, another bracha on account of the Keihanim. Vala Shara Tefillah, and another bracha called Shara Tefillah, which the Gemara will describe. Concludes the Mishnah. Haroyi Kein Gadol Kshu Koyer. Anybody who chose to observe the Kohen Gadol's Kriyas HaTorah, Eino Yiroya Parvasar and Israfim. He couldn't possibly watch the other procedure taking place at that very time. The Parvasar being burnt. Likewise, Varoya Parvasar and Israfim. One who was observing the animals being burnt, Eino Yiroya Kohen Gadol Kshu Koyer. He couldn't possibly watch the Kohen Gadol's Kriya. Not because it wasn't allowed. There was nothing illegal about it. It was just a practical consideration. There was a great distance between both events, both locations. And both events occurred simultaneously. So you had to make that choice. One or the other, you couldn't watch them together. Let's go over to Rashi. Around 2/3 down the Amud. Bal Likra, says Rashi, beginning of the Mishnah. But Likrois is a parsha dialfina mimiluim damrin perakama. We learn from miluim menayin shaf mikra parsha ma'akev. Just as over there, says Rashi, Kriyas HaTorah is ma'akev here as well. Imrotza Likrois bigdei butz. If he chooses to continue wearing his bigdei kahuna, he can do that. Bigdei butz shu lavush achshav she'avad ben avodas hayom. He can do that. If he chooses to switch to the itzlas lavush kimin chalak, some sort of white robe, he can do that as well. So he's at the Beis HaKnesses, which Rashi says was Haya Samach LaAzara Bar Abayis. It was an Ar Abayis near the Azara. Now, interestingly enough, there's a Shaila regarding the Sefer Torah that he would use. Which Sefer Torah would he use? So Rashi in Bava Basra, Yudal says, it was that Sefer Torah which was inside the Arain with the Luchas. I think more there describes everything that was in the Aron, the Luchais and a Sefer Torah. That's the one used on Yom Kippur. So the Shaila is, how do you get the Sefer Torah out of the Aron, out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim? So listen to this, the Rav Yah writes that you know when he got it? Remember he went in to bring the Kaf and Machta of the Torahs, and basically he had nothing to take out at that point. Says Rav Yah, that's when he took the opportunity to take the Sefer Torah out of the Aron and brought it to the shul. And when did he bring it back at the Kodesh HaKadoshim? Says the Rav Yah, remember, he went in again later with the Bigdei Lavan to take the Kaf Machta out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So he went in empty-handed. He wasn't taking anything on the way in. That's when he took the opportunity to bring the Sefer Torah back into the Aron HaKodesh and the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So says the Rav Yah. Now, of course, this was when they had an Aron by Yis Rishon. But the Parshim point out that once the Aron was taken away, evidently the Sefer Torah was not. It didn't go along with the Aron, and that must have been stored somewhere else, perhaps in this shul, which was in the Har HaBayis. Continues Rashi. So the Chazan HaKnesses, who's the Shamas, he would take the Sefer Torah and hand it to the Rosh HaKnesses, what we call today the Gabbai of the shul, Al Piv Nechtochen Tzarech HaKnesses, Mimafta, he's the one that decides who gets Haftarah, Miparis Al Shema, Mi'evel Fnei HaTeva, who's the Chazan, passing it over to the Kohen Gadol, who would read from the Torah, Achri Mois, Ach Be'asar, which Rashi says is Parshas Emer Al-Kehanim, and then he would declare, V'omer, Yoisr Mimashe Kurasi, Mor Mefarish Time, why you had to do that? And the third parsha, which was in Chumash HaPekudim, Sefer Vayidaber, Shemaschel, B'minyona Shel Yisrael, or Parshas Pinchas, by the Sefer, V'sham Mesafen Amur, where the Mesafen are listed, that he was carried out per time Farish Gemara. Then he had the 8 brachos, which was as follows: Ala Torah bracha shel acharei asher nasan lanu, v'ala avoda ritzei b'amcha Yisrael. Interesting, the bracha of ritzei we say today was said even when there was avoda in the Beis Hamikdash. It's not just today in lieu of avoda. It was said in the Beis Hamikdash. Ritzei b'amcha Yisrael v'sirtza avoda b'dver beisecha. And it concludes with the bracha she'oischa, probably bracha to Hashem, she'oischa levadcha b'yir navid. V'aloida, says Rashi, moedim anachnoch ad ha'toiv l'chol ha'hoides, which is similar to our nusach today. Al ha'avoida explains Rashi, what is al ha'avoida? B'shvil avoida, on account of the avoida. She'avad. V'oida smuch al avoida. And right afterwards comes hoida. Chsev zeveach toida yichabdani. Achar avoida toida. That's the order. After you do avoida, you thank Hashem for the opportunity. V'oida. Al mechilas ha'avin machoyla v'nisenu v'kipur mazeh. Ad melech moicha v'serech v'nisenu. Al Hamikdash mispalo al Hamikdash v'choisem baruch shebacha b'Hamikdash v'al kehanim mispalo al kehanim. He does a tefillah for them v'choisem baruch shebacha b'zara shel Aaron v'chein, and likewise another bracha al Yisrael v'ashal tefillah, which the Gemara will explain. Says the Gemara b'diktani b'itztlis loven mishalai. The fact that the Mishnah affords him a choice. He can do the Kriyas HaTorah wearing the big day kahuna or his own personal beged. What does that tell you about the nature of Kriyas HaTorah? Michlal de Kriya Lam Avoidi. Apparently it's not considered a chelik of the avoida, and therefore you don't need to have big day kahuna. Otherwise, he would have to wear big day kahuna. Okay, so once you know that as a fact, let's proceed further. Uktani, doesn't the Mishnah tell us, Imratza Likres, the big day boots covered. If he chooses, he can use big day boots while he's doing Kriyas HaTorah, even though it's not an avoida. How can he wear big day kahuna when he's engaged in a non-avoida activity? Shamas Minah, l'chayre, you can conclude from this. You can have a right that big day kahuna did nu lahanisben. That the Torah grants permission for big day kahuna to be used even when he's not engaged in avoida. Nit nu lahanisben. Says the Gemara, there's no right. There's no right from Kriyas HaTorah. You know why? Dil Mashani Kriya. Perhaps Kriyas HaTorah and Yom Kippur is different. It's different than just wearing big day kahuna for no special purpose. Here it's different. The tzerech avoida, although Kriya isn't technically an avoida, but it's certainly part of the avoida process. It enables the rest of the avoida in Yom Kippur. It's part of today's schedule. And therefore, perhaps it's different. Perhaps he can continue wearing the big day kahuna during the Kriyas HaTorah as well. Because really we had a general shaila. Big day kahuna nitnu lehanas b'hem, oy loy nitnu lehanas b'hem. And Torah gives the big day kahuna to kohanim. Is it strictly for avoida use? Loy nitnu lehanas b'hem. You can't have a personal benefit from it. You have to take it off as soon as you're done avoida, or perhaps nitnu lehanas b'hem. Torah allows the kohen to continue wearing the beged throughout the day, even though he's done with his avodah. And there are two pshatim in the Rishonim. Some Rishonim learn, well, lo nitna Torah lemalachei hasharis, Torah wasn't given to angels. You can expect the impossible of the kohen. As soon as he's done the avodah, a split second later, he's off with the begadim. So let's assume the Torah allows him to continue wearing it. Another pshat is, it's like a Tanai Bezdin. The money, the begadim were donated. With this in mind, with this mindset that the kohen doesn't have to pull it off as soon as he's done the avodah. So is it as such, or perhaps no? It's strictly for avodah use. Tashma, the Gemara will now bring a raya from a Gemara and Talmud. It says there, Lo hayu yisheinim b'bigdei kodesh. The kohen wouldn't actually sleep wearing their begadim. And we'll have a diuk. Sheina hu deloi. Sleeping is not allowed. Rashi says, Shema yafiach. It might pass wind, pass gas during the Shena. So that's not covered. Homechel achli. Apparently eating with the begadim is not an issue. Apparently they can have anah. Dil mashani achila tzerech avoidei. So there's no right from achila to other activities. Perhaps achila is part and parcel of the avoida procedure. It's not actually avoida, but it's tzerech avoida. Whether we're speaking about eating the kachim themselves, or as some of our say, even the other foods which will be part of his meal before he gets to the kachim, which are meant to be eaten at the end. As a sort of a dessert. So the other foods which he's going to eat is also considered a necessary component for a day's work in the Beis Hamikdash, and perhaps that's why he can wear the begadim. The tzorech avodah we regard eating as part of the avodah, tzorech avodah, because the sani v'ochel oisam asher kupa behem. Pasuk says that the karbanos are meant to be eaten by the kehanim, and the pasuk says asher kupa behem, which implies that even eating karbanos is considered somewhat part of the kapara. Melamed, we learn from here shekahanim oichlim ubalim iskaprin. The achila of the karbanos by the kehanim, and actually Rashi Psachim says it applies even to the Yisraelim who eat their portions of the karbanos. That generates kapara ubalim iskaprin. So even achila is really related to avodah, to karbanos, and perhaps they can actually eat wearing their begadim. But to engage in any other personal activities, to just plainly benefit from the Bidei Kahuna, don't have a raya that's mutter. Okay, says well, let's proceed further. So what do we learn in the Mishnah here? They wouldn't sleep in their begadim. Sheina hu delay. They couldn't sleep. Ha hiluchi mehalchi. They have a diak. No sleep, but they could just walk around with their begadim. You see, you can have a no. Says the Gemara, it's not really a right. Bedinhu daluchi namiloi. Perhaps they can't even walk around with those begadim once they're done avodah. So why does the Mishnah specifically speak about the Isser to sleep? The Sefer Tzrichalei. The reason is because he wanted to proceed to the Sefer to tell us a chiddush regarding the time of Zman Sheina. The Sefer Tzrichalei. What would they do then? Poishtin u'makaplan u'manichen tachas Rashem. They would remove the begadim when they went to sleep, fold them up, and place the begadim u'manichen tachas Rashem under their heads to be used as a pillow. So that's the chiddush of the Mishnah, that you can do that. And as Rashi says, let's go to Rashi. V'sefer tzrichlei up on top. Sheina de nokat. The reason why the Mishnah discusses Sheina, to tell you a chiddush regarding sleeping. To tell you, you can place it beneath their heads. There's no concern that perhaps he'll pass wind, because once he's no longer wearing it, even though it's lying right next to him, there's no concern. It's not considered a lack of respect if he's mafiach at that time. So you can't have a diak. Right? Sheina is asur, but walking around is mutter. That's not the point of the Mishnah. Perhaps even walking around is asur. The Mishnah chose to discuss Sheina to teach us this halacha. Says the Mishnah, but that in itself should be a raya. You can conclude from this alone. Big de kahuna, nitnu lahanisman. The fact that you're allowing it to be placed beneath their heads, used as a pillow, apparently you can have enough. Big de kahuna. Amar papa no loitim atachas rashem. Rather than referring to beneath their heads, interpret it differently. Le'ema kineged rashem. Says Rashi, eitzel rashem. The Mishnah simply meant that they folded it up and placed it next to their heads. But of course they wouldn't actually lie on them, because perhaps we may not have hana from Big Kahuna shaloi b'shas avodah. So at this point in the Gemara, regarding the ability for a kohen to wear Big Kahuna, so during avodah, of course, it's mutter. Even during Kriyas HaTorah and Yom Kippur, or Achila, which is considered tzorech avodah, it would be mutter. Sleeping with the begadim is asur because it's a lack of kavod. Regarding other activities, we leave it unresolved at this point, but it's Hashem to be resolved in tomorrow's daf. Okay, let's make a quick chazar of today's daf. We learned about the streif of the par of the Sar Yom Kippur, as well as the par Kohen Mashiach, par Amdav Shel Tzibur. All these things happen chus l'shalish machnes. Where was the Mokim Streifa? According to Rabbanan, Safan Yerushalayim, according to Shimon Mizrach. We need to have some deshem placed there, according to some shittas, and perhaps according to other shittas not. there's Tumas Begadim that sets in. According to Tanakama, as soon as he leaves the Azara. According to Reb Shimon, it only takes place when the fire actually takes hold of most of the animal. Until a point is Tumas Begadim going to apply. According to Tanakama, only until it turns into ashes. According to Reb Shimon, even before that moment, once the Nitach HaBasar happens, it's no longer considered the original par, it's no longer Matama Begadim. The Kohen Gadol had to wait until the Soyer arrived in order to continue his Avodah. So we had 3 ways to determine that. According to Tanakama, they had fellows standing with flags, which would indicate that the Soyer arrived at the cliff. According to Rabbi Yehuda, they waited the time period that it takes to walk 3 mil, and this would indicate that the Soyer arrived at the beginning, at the outskirts of the Midbar, which we call Beis Chidudai. According to Bishmal, they relied on the thread, which would whiten when the Soyer arrived at the Midbar. We went to the Mishnah. Kohen Gadol's next item on the agenda was Kriyas HaTorah, where he would read the 3 Parshias, Achri Mois, Ach Ba'asar, and from the Musafin in Parshas Pinchas, he was Mevarech 8 brachos following the Kriyas HaTorah, and concluded with the Shaila whether or not Bigdei Kahuna can be used even during non-avoid activities. Haslach Rabati and Kultiv.